Hey, everybody. My name is Juliana, for those of you who don't know me. Today, I wanted to talk about this concept of um, seasons and human experience and human struggle. So, kind of felt this my whole life. I find that, and you might relate to this, we kind of put ourselves apart from Mother Earth, apart from nature. You know, we build on it, we pave on it, we build houses on it, and it's created this illusion that we are not in connection with Mother Earth. And I say illusion because I truly believe that. I believe that it's false. I believe that we are so deeply interconnected to Mother Earth, her rhythms, the rhythms of the seasons. And this relates to our human struggle. I'm going to tell you a little story. In Nanaimo here last weekend, we had a ton of snow. And before that, leading up to it, it was starting to, temperature was starting to pick up just a teeny bit. There's this marsh around here that I walk around quite often, and I was noticing the red-winged blackbirds and the robins and the cedar waxwing. They were like more active than usual. They were singing and flying, and it just felt quite alive, the marsh. And then we got this hit of weather, this winter storm, and we don't get a lot of snow over here. We still have it outside. We got about a foot, which is quite a lot. And the whole coast was just covered in snow. And all of there were even blooms that were starting to happen. There were snowdrops in my backyard. You know, that's kind of one of the other first signs of spring. And everything just got covered. Um, all the birds went quiet. I have a hummingbird feeder outside on my back deck and suet for the other songbirds. And every night I would go outside, or when it got dark, I would go outside and I would bring the hummingbird feeder and the suet in because it would freeze overnight. Again, not something that's very common here. And each morning, first thing I would do was bring the suet and the hummingbird feeder back outside. And if I was a little later in the morning, if it wasn't still dark, the hummers would come and buzz me. They would come, and it was like they were saying thank you, like thank you for putting this food out for us. We're hungry. And I would sit at my kitchen table and look out at the window where the hummingbird feeder is, and the hummers would just come. And there would be two or three of them sometimes, which is kind of rare in my home. Because think I have about five or six that live around here, and like two or three of them would just come for a drink, and then in the midst of the snowstorm, because it was blustery and blowing, they would sit. They would drink, and then they would sit, like they were for shelter. They just wanted to be huddled in. And this got me reflecting on our own seasons as humans, um, and how we struggle, and our own internal emotions and struggles that happen. So a lot of the times when I have clients that come to me, um, they just want the pain that they're in to end, right? And it makes so much sense. When you're feeling anxious, depressed, when you're struggling in relationship, you just want it to end. It feels really difficult and hard. It can feel painful, like physically sometimes. You can have lack of sleep. Like there's so much going on. And what I notice as humans, and I've experienced this as well for myself, is that we just want that pain to be over. We want winter to end, essentially. We don't want to be stuck out in the cold, in the bluster. We want to live in perpetual spring or summer where there's this constant growth and then full blossoming where we can just dance in the sun and celebrate. And while that's really beautiful, and I mean, I love the spring and I love the summer. Well, I don't know if I love the summer. I'm not big on the heat. I like it at a certain heat level, but I love the sun, right? It's so nice. But if we look at nature and not only the seasons, autumn, winter, spring, and summer, if we look at the trees around us, the animals around us, they all adapt to what's going on outside of them. Like they're a part of this process of hibernation, of new growth in spring, of full on blooming and just taking the world in and being their big selves, and then shedding at the end of the cycle. So I'll use this as an example. I'll use it like I love trees, and we have this maple tree. It's called a big leaf maple on the west coast here, and you can actually tap it for syrup, just like the East Coast maples. It's a much lighter syrup than our traditional maple syrup that we have here in Canada. Um, what's beautiful about these big leaf maples is what happens is we start with them in the autumn, right? Just as autumn's starting to hit, they turn these glorious colors and they start to drop their leaves in preparation, right? They've just spent the summer growing these amazing leaves and living full out. And as the weather shifts and the temperature changes, their sap flow starts to slow down. They start to drop their leaves. And big leaf maples are quite huge. They've got these really big crowns and these really big roots, and they grow like kind of in wetter areas. They like much damper soil. And so they drop these leaves. And what happens to these leaves as they fall, so they're shedding, what happens with these leaves is these leaves land on the earth, and we're talking like natural, not in someone's backyard, and they blanket the earth and they create a, a hibernation place for the herbs, the shrubs, and little grubs, so little bugs in the soil. And this creates this warming place for all of these new shoots that are going to lie dormant for the fall. So they drop these leaves, right? They're shedding everything that they had from the summer. And then what happens is the temperature turns colder and winter hits, and their sap flow. I mean, not so much on the West Coast because it does stay at a certain temperature, but it flows quite down, right? They're gone right into dormancy. There is no growth in the winter, very, very little growth. And if you think of it, it's like this withdrawal, the withdrawal of the senses, withdrawal of the outer world and what's going on and what's influencing us. It's this really like self-reflective state for the trees as well, I think. So they go into winter and you think nothing's really happening, right? You look outside at the trees and the shrubs and they're dead. They're brown sticks, trees with no leaves unless they're conifers, right? And I don't know, you could possibly think that there's nothing happening. But the truth is that they're just waiting. They're waiting for the right time to start growing again. And the winter is this time, like bears do it too, right? You go right into hibernation. It's time to go into the cave. And then weather shifts again, and the temperature rises, and this maple tree, the sap starts flowing. During this winter period, the leaves that it's also dropped on the ground have started decomposing. They're breaking down, they're leaving all of the nutrients, all of those good nutrients that are in their leaves that they produced all summer into the ground, and it's seeping for food for the grubs and the shrubs and the herbs. So as the sap starts to grow, to flow for this maple tree, it starts to create new buds. It's like all of the waiting and the hibernation has given this tree the energy to then push up the sap, pull up the nutrients from the earth that it's also taking from its leaves that it's just dropped, and shoot sap up to create these buds. And then those buds open and they push out new leaves. So there's spring. It's like this burst of energy. It's like so much newness, so much excitement, right? Springtime is exciting and full of hope. And then as the spring starts to flow and we have the sap is in full force, the temperature again rises. We get longer days and we're in full growth, full bloom. So those maple trees are glorious and green with their massive leaves, right? And they're just kind of in their glory. They're like at the peak. And the birds are singing and landing in them. There's fresh herbs growing underneath them. The shrubs are all in their glorious bloom as well. And this is all because it's dropped the nutrients in the autumn, and the winter has allowed the time for hibernation and the nutrients of all of the leaves and all of the dead matter to create new life in the soil so the tree can then bloom again. And then the cycle starts again. So the temperatures start to drop, the days get longer, and the tree is like, well, I need a rest. So it drops its leaves. It releases and sheds everything that it's been holding for the summer. And those leaves fall to the soil in order to break down so that the tree can go into hibernation, and the shrubs and the grubs and the herbs underneath can go into hibernation so that the nutrients can break down and they can start their cycle again. So I think this is magical and phenomenal. There's so much wisdom that we can take from the earth and these natural cycles that she flows with. And it makes me really think about our own natural cycles, right? I've had depression in my life, as some of you might know. To me, that depression is really this inward state. It's a winter. And unfortunately, with humans and our emotions, we can't always predict how long our seasons are going to last. Sometimes our seasons are much longer. Sometimes they're shorter. You can go through a whole season in a day, feel completely withdrawn in the morning, and then start to feel energized, right? Something shifts your mood and you start to feel energized, and then you feel great for the rest of the day. Maybe you get to see someone you know, or you're out walking and you just feel alive. And then dusk starts to hit, and we shed everything we use for the day and we start to wind down. So this happens with our emotions, right? They go up and down, or they go in circle. They're cyclical. And I truly believe that the more that we can tap in to the messages that we're receiving from all of the creatures that live on the earth and the earth herself, that we can start to feel not as alone in our struggle. Um, Struggle is hard. Anxiety is hard. Depression is hard. Human relationships, partnerships, they can be difficult, right? They're not easy. Being in this human life is not easy. There are beautiful moments of joy and laughter and summer, right? And we experience winters and autumns where we're shedding and we're in hibernation. So, I guess the message today is, if you're struggling, if you've got something going on um, that you're having a hard time with, or maybe something that you're really celebrating, something that you love, um, maybe you're newly in love, maybe you've just done something that you've been working on for a long time and you're in that celebratory mode, maybe you're in a hibernation mode. I want to encourage you to start looking for similarities out in nature. Start looking for, I guess they're metaphors as well. They can be metaphors for what you're going through out in nature, out when you're going for a walk, even on the pavement. Do you ever see the pavement where we work so hard at paving things over and then you see grass pop up? Um, it's like the earth is always um, moving through, moving past, being in the moment and overcoming overcoming the winter. Like it goes into the winter and then when it's time, it sprouts. So I want to encourage you to try this practice. Try to just notice whatever's going on for you. See if you can see it out there. I point this way because my window's right there. I'm looking outside all the time. See if you can notice a kinship, a uh, a kinship, a just a connection to maybe what's going on out there might be similar to what's going on in here. Give it a try. It's something that I love to do. It's very dear to my heart, and it definitely supports me in feeling not so alone in this life. Um, because at some point, we're always going to be alone as humans. At some point, we're not going to have another human around us. At some point, we might feel alone. And so, how can we find connection and meaning in life when we're not being surrounded by other people, when we're not in partnership, when we feel like no one understands us? Maybe you can find it out there. Maybe that's where we need to look when we're struggling. So I'm going to leave you with that today. I'd love to hear what you think of what I've said, if it's sparked any thoughts or feelings, or yeah, I just love to hear. So you can always email me or drop me a message, and I'd love to hear from you. So wishing you so much well, and looking forward to spring. It's coming now after the winter. I'm sure of it. Thanks, guys.